Good evening, CMST 430. My name is Brendon Favre, and this is my second video post for this week. The first ethical dilemma that was presented in my article was conducting personal business on company time. Because we spend so much time at work, we're often tempted to conduct personal business, such as making appointments for ourselves or for our kids or family members, taking personal phone calls, or checking the old social media, Facebook or whatever we're using nowadays, while we're on company time. This can be viewed as many different things, and a list of these things can be found on pages 50 and 51 of the book. And the book gives some examples of these as misuse of work time, misuse of company equipment, and even stealing. I would consider all of the above to be true if the person, if you're not on lunch or if you're not on a break and you're on company time. If you're on a break or on lunch or off the clock, I don't really see what the harm would be in conducting personal business using company equipment, using the computer to send some emails out or whatever, using the copy machine for personal use, or, using a company phone. I don't really see what the issue would be. But the best course of action for this is going to be current on company policy, to know what's acceptable and unacceptable behavior. And if you have any questions about that, it'd be best to go straight to HR. You don't want to take any secondhand information. You don't want to ask a coworker or even your manager, what they think about something. Go straight to HR. They're going to be able to tell you exactly what policy is. They should be able to anyway. I'm never going to assume that everybody knows everything. So they should be the most current on what policy are and what acceptable behavior is and consequences and all that kind of stuff. The next ethical dilemma presented was inappropriate and harassing behavior. The article classifies inappropriate and harassing behavior as something that creates a hostile, intimidating, or offensive workplace. This can be labeled as interpersonal abuse, found on page 50 of the book, and the book defines it as physical violence, sexual harassment, emotional abuse, abuse of one's position, racism, and sexism between individuals in the workplace. And on page 57 of the book, under destructive communication. And the book defines that as attacks on others' self-esteem, reputations, or feelings. I agree with and feel all companies should really have a zero tolerance policy when it comes to harassment. That's not what we're worked to do. We're supposed to be adults. We're supposed to be mature, and it's really no place for harassment. Do your job, and with that said, it does need to be clearly spelled out, using specific language and giving examples of what is considered unacceptable behavior, and clearly spelling out what the consequences for those violations are. If that's immediate termination, if that's some type of mediation or anger management classes, or whatever it may be, the company needs to make sure people are aware of if you do X, Y, and Z, you will be terminated or whatever, because it's just better to operate that way. Another ethical dilemma discussed is taking credit for other people's work. The article discusses that primarily this is seen during team projects where not everybody contributes equally, and they still may take credit for the final product. I would consider this to be deceitful, as defined on page 50 of the book. This is one issue that I've encountered, and I'm sure everybody else in this class has encountered, especially at school. It's pretty common. I found the best way to mitigate this from occurring is to assign each individual a task. If you're in charge, or just as a group, get together, everybody gets an assigned task of who's going to handle what. And if you've got somebody that has problems procrastinating or not fulfilling their duties, there's nothing wrong with assigning due dates, having progress reports, or having check-in dates where everybody gets together and kind of presents all those work. You don't really want to single somebody out. It may come to that. I don't really have any issue doing that, but I know some people like to avoid confrontation. But there's other loopholes around that, so you're not singling somebody out. The last ethical dilemma presented was stealing on the job. This can come in many different forms, from embezzling money to taking office supplies for your personal use, installing company software on a personal computer, to conducting personal business on company time. This is again discussed on page 50 of the book. I personally find all of these practices to be unethical. Stealing in the physical sense of taking money or supplies or software, I feel is stealing any way you look at it. You can try to justify it to yourself any way you want to, but in the end of the day, it's stealing. And conducting personal business on company time, I feel it's unacceptable unless you're on break, on lunch, or off the clock, as I mentioned above. I'm guilty of doing some of these things myself. I'm no saint, but again, it's kind of where you have to draw what your ethics, your morals, where you're going to draw that line in the sand, and it's really up to you at the end of the day. You got to live with yourself, and nobody else does. So there are decisions you have to make. That's all I got for tonight. Thank you for your time. Have a good night.